"Get out of my company." He snapped across the long conference table, slamming his palm beside my coffee, like a judge delivering a verdict. He said like it had always belonged to him, like I was just some lucky girl who got to help. He didn't know I'd been preparing for this moment for 8 months. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I simply slid a sealed folder across the table. Then I smiled and said, "Open it slowly. Hi, I'm Eliza. I co-founded a boutique branding agency 6 years ago, the kind that grew from my apartment floor into a downtown loft with exposed brick and too much sunlight. I poured my 20s into it. And then my sister introduced me to her husband, Miles, a marketing guy who said all the right things. We hired him. Slowly, he started improving things. I didn't mind. At first. Until the meetings started happening without me. Until he started presenting my strategies as his. And then one morning, I walked into my own office and found my name removed from the wall. That's when I realized I wasn't being overlooked. I was being erased. The moment he told me to clear out my desk, I knew I had one shot. Not to argue, not to beg, but to end it. And when he opened that folder, the air shifted. He blinked. And for the first time ever, he didn't have a single word to say. Miles didn't touch the folder at first. Just stared at it, like it might explode. He glanced at the others in the room. 2 team leads, our accountant, and a junior designer who was clearly regretting showing up early. I watched him squirm. I had waited so long for that exact look. Let me rewind. 6 years ago, I started the agency with a single client and a vision board taped above a cracked desk. I built it while juggling freelance work, ramen noodles, and late-night panic. By year 2, I had a roster, a brand, and traction. By year 3, I made a mistake. I trusted family. Miles married my younger sister, Hannah, a corporate HR manager who thought owning a business meant working in yoga pants. Miles, on the other hand, was charming. Too charming. He offered to help optimize operations. Within months, he was handling invoices, negotiating with vendors, and hosting pitch meetings without me. But here's what he didn't know. My name was never removed from the ownership documents. And after I saw him transfer a $22,000 payment to an outsourced consultant who just so happened to be his friend Derek, I got quiet. Dangerously quiet. I hired a lawyer. I formed a new LLC. And I let him keep digging. Until I had everything. And now he was seconds away from realizing it. Because the folder in front of him, it wasn't just paper. It was a loaded weapon. Miles finally opened the folder. It was like watching a poker player realize too late he'd been bluffing with nothing in his hand. Inside was a full forensic audit, signed by a private investigator, with itemized expenses, fake vendors, ghost consultants, and internal emails he thought were deleted. I'd traced every penny he funneled away. Every manipulation, every signature forged under the guise of company efficiency. But let's go back. The deeper betrayal wasn't just financial. It was how Miles slowly turned my sister against me. Hannah stopped visiting the office. She started parroting his language. Let him lead, Eliza. And you're too emotionally attached to the brand. She accused me of micromanaging when I questioned a budget discrepancy. Then came the worst part. Miles claimed I was misusing funds. He pulled Hannah aside and said I had an issue, that I was burning out, unstable, not fit to run a company anymore. They voted to restructure. And I watched as the agency I built, my dream, my identity, became a polished stage for someone else's ego. They took my ideas, my clients, my staff loyalty, but I let them. Because while they were busy turning me into a ghost, I was building something stronger beneath the surface. A second entity, a secret network, and a paper trail that led straight to their undoing. Now, with every page Miles flipped, his face drained another shade of red. He didn't know the worst part yet, but he was about to read it. He reached the last page and froze. I don't understand, Miles stammered, voice cracking. Oh, you do, I said quietly. Page 14 outlines the company transfer. You signed it. I never. His voice trailed off as his eyes landed on the scanned signature. Identical to his. Too identical. I had a handwriting analyst review it, I added. Turns out you've been forging my signature for almost a year. The room went still. Even the intern stopped pretending to sip her coffee. That was the moment. The moment the whole thing tipped. He looked up at me, and for the first time, he wasn't smug. He was scared. You see, 3 months ago, I secretly sold 60% of the company's IP, intellectual property rights, brand equity, and proprietary design assets, to a partner firm I trusted. A clause in that sale stated that if any illegal activity was discovered under the current leadership, the remaining ownership would default to the whistleblower. Me. The audit proved it. And with a forged signature on record, he wasn't just morally bankrupt. He was legally vulnerable. I stood, calmly gathering the folder. In about 20 minutes, I said, "A lawyer will serve you official notice. You're no longer with this company." He looked at Hannah, who had just walked in and heard everything. "Miles," she whispered, pale. And that was when he whispered the only honest words I'd ever heard from him. "She set me up?" "No, Miles. I uncovered you." After the conference room emptied, Miles gone, Hannah trailing behind him like a ghost, I sat alone. Not triumphant. Not smug. Just still. Because revenge, real revenge, doesn't feel like a movie climax. It feels like clarity. I stared at the same desk where, 8 months earlier, I'd cried into my sleeve after discovering Miles had moved $14,000 into a shell account labeled Team Development. That was the moment I stopped reacting and started planning. I called my old mentor, Lila, a business attorney who once told me, "Never fight fire with fire. Fight it with paper." We formed a new LLC, L&Co Creative Holdings. Quiet. Hidden. Then I began shifting. One loyal client at a time. One copyright clause at a time. Every new design? Filed under L&Co. Every updated strategy? Proprietary and watermarked. Every digital asset? Cloud-logged and time-stamped. All while Miles strutted through my company, like a king. He thought he was erasing me, but I was rewriting everything under a different name. I also started therapy. Not just for the betrayal, but for how easily I'd handed over my worth for the illusion of peace. The folder was never revenge. It was insurance. And now it was protection. But I wasn't finished. I still had one move left. One email to send. One person who needed to know the truth before they invested another dollar in Miles. Because the real damage hadn't hit him yet. But it was coming. I walked into my apartment, tossed my keys on the table, and opened my laptop. The email draft was already written. Subject: urgent. Before you sign anything with Miles Whitaker. It was addressed to the CEO of Virion Tech, a multi-million-dollar client Miles had been wooing for weeks behind my back. He was trying to sell them a joint venture proposal. Problem? He used stolen designs from my L&Co portfolio to impress them. Designs he didn't know were copyright-trapped with invisible digital signatures. I attached the audit, the legal filings, the side-by-side comparison of my original branding mock-ups and what Miles claimed was his latest innovation. Then I attached one final item, a video recording. 2 weeks ago, I'd wired a mic into a meeting room and asked Miles casually, "Should I be worried about the Virion pitch?" He laughed and said, "Nah. They'll never know we recycled your old stuff. Let me handle the talking. You just sit there and smile pretty." Send. Then I called Lila. Serve the cease and desist to Virion's legal team. Make it official. Within 24 hours, I received a reply from the CEO himself. "Thank you for protecting us from this man. Needless to say, the deal is off. We'd like to speak with you instead." I leaned back in my chair, not to celebrate, but to breathe. Because this wasn't about taking Miles down. It was about reclaiming me. But as for Miles, his phone would be ringing soon. And the caller wasn't going to be friendly. 3 days later, Miles called me at 3:27 a.m. I didn't answer, but I watched the voicemail transcribe live. "Eliza, please. You've got to stop. You've made your point. Virion pulled out. Investors are panicking. Hannah's gone. I'm begging you." That wasn't the sound of a man who thought he was powerful. That was the sound of someone who realized the empire he tried to steal had never been his to begin with. By Monday, 3 of our biggest clients publicly announced they were freezing all projects pending internal leadership review. Turns out, once you shine light on someone's shadow dealings, others start checking their invoices too. Then came the real blow. Hannah showed up at my office unannounced. She looked hollow, makeup half done, hands shaking. "He told me everything," she said. "I didn't know. About the money. About forging your name. About the shell accounts." She tried to apologize. I let her speak. But I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. Not just what Miles did, but that she believed him, so quickly, so easily. "I thought you'd always bounce back," she whispered. "You always do." I gave her a soft smile. No one should have to. She left without another word. Later that night, I received one final notification. Miles had been served formally. Wire fraud, corporate misrepresentation, IP theft. The folder had done its job. But the last twist, that hadn't even happened yet. It happened quietly 3 weeks later. I was sipping coffee in my new office, a space I designed from the ground up, floor-to-ceiling glass, sunlight pouring in, my name etched on the door. Eliza Ray Consulting. No more shared desks. No more borrowed credit. No more stolen ideas. That morning, I received a manila envelope by courier. No return address. Just one document inside, a signed letter from Miles' attorney. My client officially relinquishes all claims to the original company and its assets. In exchange, he requests no further legal pursuit. I laughed. It was too late for that. The legal wheels had already turned. But it was the handwritten note beneath it that hit me harder. "You didn't just outsmart me. You made me irrelevant." I folded the paper, placed it in my drawer, and didn't look at it again. Later that afternoon, I logged into our new analytics dashboard. Ellen Co. had just landed 2 national campaigns. One of them? Virion Tech. They didn't just want to hire us. They wanted to license our brand strategy for their international expansion. And in the final meeting, their CEO leaned forward and asked, out of curiosity, "What happened to the guy you used to work with?" I smiled. He was just a temporary glitch. They laughed. I didn't. Because to me, this wasn't funny. This was freedom. Not loud. Not cruel. Just permanent. And when I finally stood at the window, watching the city below, I whispered one final word.